being here with us tonight on your Friday evening. My name is Quinn. I'm with Rain Associates, and we are the firm that is leading the superintendent search. We've had a wonderful week with you all, and we're excited to round it out here with Miss Minerva. Minerva Garcia Sanchez, she is one of our finalists. I'm so excited for you all to get to know her this evening, to learn more about her, and just to see what different experiences she could bring to DeKalb. So with that, Miss Minerva, if you'd like to start off and give us a summary of who you are, where you come from, some personal sentiments, educational philosophies, whatever you would like to share with the DeKalb community would be great.
Okay. Hi there. Good evening. Thank you so much for spending your Friday evening with us. I really appreciate you as we're getting ready for the holidays. Holiday time is a great time for family, and I am one of those folks that really likes to be around family. Usually, holidays for me means I get to be with all my cousins and my grandparents. My 99-year-old grandfather passed away in March, but up until now, he'd always been with us and at the forefront. So definitely all about family. I am Mexican American. I was born and raised in the city of Chicago. My parents are immigrants from Mexico. My dad is from Durango, a very rural part up in the mountains, and my mom is from Michoacan, a town that's in the valley of the mountains. So I do have experience. I spent a lot of time out there getting to know the family and understanding who I am through that lens. My personal theory of action actually comes from the fact that I was raised in this way. I also want to say that I grew up in the little village area, which is La Villita, La 26. And me being the eldest child, the eldest granddaughter, the first one to go to college for my family, the first one to get married and have kids, etc., was definitely something that really resonates with me and how I think about being an educator and how I lead. So for instance, I'm married. I have 3 boys. They're all out of the house. My husband and I are empty nesters. My eldest is 27. My middle son, and he's working in the city. My middle son is graduated from University of Illinois, Chicago. He played soccer all 4 years and is now in Spain teaching English. So we're really excited about that. He's really, although he graduated in finance and analytics, he's trying to be a worldly man, and he's trying to figure out who he is. So when he comes back, he can get to work like the rest of us. And then, of course, my youngest son, he's 22, and he is a teacher assistant in Chicago Public Schools. So I feel like it has something to do with all this education. And that really has to do with how I lead and how I am. So I'm a mom first and foremost. And that just doesn't come out just with my 3 sons, but it's how I see all of the children that I service. I see them as my children. I actually see them as me because my parents are the parents of these students, but definitely want to make sure that there's a connection. As I sit in that seat, what would I need to be able to learn, understand, and be able to do? And I think that's really what resonates with me as I move forward. I'm an educator. I've been doing this for this is my 27th year. First and always a teacher and an educator. So when I'm walking into classrooms and I'm thinking about, what it looks like, how it feels, are students engaged, and what that looks like, I'm thinking about, does the student have everything they need? And does the teacher have everything that he or she needs to be able to access that for students? So that's really important for me as an English learner myself, and also as a mother of a child who is a special needs student. I'm always thinking about what that looks like and feels like if I would want to send my kids to this school, to this classroom. And that's my lens there. So being a part of the community, there's a lot of things that I do. One is that I have 3 communities that I service. It's Little Village, La Vita, Marshall Square, and Pilsen. Pilsen is what most people know because it's, what's out in the papers, and there's a lot of murals and a lot of culturalness. But Marshall Square and Little Village are just as equal and as much as that. 95% of my population there is Latino, from Mexican descent mostly. I have about 5% Black, and then 1% white or biracial, multiracial students. 47% of my students are English learners, and 41% of them are special needs. Of those 41%, about half of them are also English learners. So I have a very diverse population now. But as I have worked in Chicago Public Schools over the last 26 years, I've worked across the district in various ways and means. I've been in communities such as Inglewood, I've been in Beverly, I've been in Mount Greenwood, as I've been in Wicker Park, and I've been in Lincoln Park. So there's different aspects of the way that I've worked, that I've taken the good things, making sure that I leave things that don't really pertain to my work, but making sure that I learn how to improve the next area in which I work. Having said that, I want to make sure that you understand that I lead from an equity lens towards moving into a justice lens. And that doesn't mean, I don't know what that means to you, but I'm going to say that this is what it means to me. Justice is about improving systems and structures so that we can right size the system for those of us that are in it. Equity means that we have accessibility to that system, and that it prevails upon us to make sure that we get what we need to be able to be resourceful, to be successful, and to be able to have access to the learning. Now, that means a lot of different things to a lot of different peoples in different ways based on who you are and what your current stance is. So I don't want to think that that I'm not thinking about the big general picture, but I am going to give you an example. The example is if a school is being, if a community is being gentrified and students and families are moving out, they're being displaced because they can't pay the rent, and schools are losing student enrollment. What do we do to make sure that that community doesn't lose a good school because people are getting pushed out? And how do we bring in the families of those students, or the students of those families that are moving in? What systems or programs or structures do we need to put in place so that we can bring in individuals to make sure that they feel a part, that they see the efficacy in their own school, and that they're connected to that community so that they are lifelong learners, lifelong livers into that place. And that's the kind of work that I do. I do that by developing specialization plans for schools. I help communities write their education, oh dear Lord. It's a community plan, an improvement community plan for their community, so that those things could connect it and people are receiving the resources and supports that they need to really strengthen that community, to strengthen their school, to strengthen the liveliness and the livelihood of the businesses that are there so that they thrive. And I think that's what's important. And I know that you're going to ask me a question about why I want to come here. And that is because this is what that opportunity has led me to, is that I feel that having heard from your board, having heard from individuals, it's just strengthened my belief that I am a good fit for your district. I am a good fit for it because my beliefs and my values strongly resemble those of yours from what I've heard. I believe that the teachers are the forefront, the essential workers of making sure our students are connected. But I believe that the community, the parents, the community-based organizations, without them, we wouldn't have the customers that we do have, right? Our clients are them, and we have to make sure that we are all working together to ensure that our students get what they need. And that is a good, equitable, high standard, rigorous curriculum and instruction, and people that care about them and care about their efficacy, and that they will graduate with all the tools needed to be either good stewards of our world, working in a career, or going off to college. So I feel that a good connection has been made with the individuals that I have met as a group or individually around what DeKalb means to me and how I see myself being a thought partner, a coach, and a guide to all of you, and being supportive of the community. So I think I kind of mixed those two things up for you, Quinn. I hope that isn't a problem.
No, that is totally great. You hit the nail on the head with that one. I was going to ask why you were interested in DeKalb. I'll kind of build upon that and kind of ask you a follow-up question to that. Is what is your vision for this district, and why is it important to you? And I think you talked on that a little bit, but I'd love to hear just a little bit more about what your vision for DeKalb would be.
Sure. So I'm going to be honest. I was taking a look at the data. I'm looking at your website, and then I was looking at your diversity plan, just to name a few things. And there's some things that really popped out at me. A school building is a building, right? It's not not an education. It's a place that people come to. Um, in communities, schools are sometimes the center of that community because lots of people spend a lot of time there, right? They feel connected there. Currently, we're in remote learning, and so it's kind of hard. But as I was telling the teachers and the staff earlier, faculty and the staff earlier, that they really are the frontline folks, the essential workers that help students feel connected and want to be there with them. So, it just resonates with me that we need to make sure that we solidify, stabilize the personnel, making sure that our teachers stay with us, they want to stay with us. I want to make sure that that the mobility of our students is from school to school, not leaving the district, but because they might be moving from one area to another, but making sure that whichever school they attend, that it's the best school that they could attend and that everything that they need is inclusive there. And, maybe that's a big dream, but, I'm 100% in to make it happen. So I feel that collaboration is important, and collaboration can only occur if there's good, strong communication. I think that our families have voices that we need to listen to. Our students have voices that will help us to refine the work that we need to do within our building. And we have to trust each other to be able to do that work collectively. Because this work can't happen with one person alone or a group of people alone. I'm going to be the one that says it. It does take a village, but the village means that everybody knows what's supposed to happen. Everybody's all in, and everybody's willing to work to make it happen for the future of our students and our country. And so I think that's really what's important. How I would work that way to get that done.
I love that village sentiment very much. As you very well know in your current role, the superintendent has a lot of different roles within a district and a community. So, what aspect of that are you most passionate about? And could you tell us some ways that you have illustrated excellence in this area?
Sure. Um, so if you were to talk to my principals, which you could do, they would probably tell you that I probably know what's happening in the community before they know what's happening in the community. And the reason that is because I choose to meet with my community, as I mentioned, on a weekly basis. 3 different communities, 3 different aldermen, 3 different sets of principals, and I meet with them on a weekly basis so that they hear me and I hear them about what's happening. The other piece of that is that I open my phone, my text, my email for anybody who wants to reach out to let me know that something's happening. Because again, I said, the community is the reason that we have schools to have students in so that we can work. And if we know what's stirring in the community, it will affect everything else. And so we want to be proactive about keeping things from negatively affecting our school environment. And so we need to be really well connected to what's happening in the community, what families are thinking and what they're saying, and what students really want to share with us so that we can keep to our best way possible things from happening. Now, will it always be perfect? Will things go through? Yes. I'm not saying that things won't happen anymore. I can't promise that. But how we react, how we're proactive and how we react to it really will speak to who we are as individuals, as collaborators, and as leaders of this district.
Thank you for that, Minerva. Could you share just a little bit about your experiences in building partnerships with community? So DeKalb has a lot of different community assets, and I know you just kind of told us a little bit about that, but could you share those partnerships that you have and a change or innovation that came from one of those partnerships that really impacted the district?
Sure. Actually, I wrote down all of your community partners that you have listed, and I really wanted to make sure that I understand that that the work that you do with the community partners is really what resonates with the values of the district and the community, right? So, for instance, I know that there is a now I lost my page. Give me one quick second. I thought I was more organized, better organized than that.
No worries.
Oh, here it is. Okay. So, so for instance, there's a food mart, there's the education foundation, there's your, there's a shelter, there's Proudly DeKalb, there's a United Way, who's a partner with me now, and I am very familiar with, aside from a lot of other resources, I'm sure from the community-based organizations. And I think that really what's important is that I get to know those, all of those services, so that I better understand that when there is crisis, when there's need, when there's somebody that needs something, that I'm able to be that person, or be able to be one of many people that can say to you, hey, so-and-so is doing this, there's a drive, there's a collection, they're giving this away, we're here to support you, and that we can do that. So that's definitely one big piece. The other piece that's really important is actually working with the health clinics, and those types of services, because especially during these times, there's a lot of people going through a lot of things. And mentally, physically, there has to be a way for us to be able to cope with this. And some of us can cope with it better than others. And I just want to make sure that we're thinking about trauma, or we're just thinking about being able to vent, or being able to get something off of our chest, that there are opportunities for people to be able to access that. And that if you need more than that, that we should be able to get that. We should be able to get that to you. I think it's important for our staff, our school staff, and our faculty to be able to watch out for those kinds of things, so that we can enact either a social, emotional, or cultural and climate, or behavior health aspects to any of the work, to ensure that our students feel that they're being connected, that they're being cared for, and that we're supporting them. And then, of course, not just to them, but it extends also to the families, because it's really important, again, that if we help them to remove their obstacles, it will help them to be more proactive in attending to their education, and so that we can be more supportive. I think that's something that we want to be able to connect. So the quality of life plan, that's what I couldn't remember the name of. Okay, so the quality of life plan is something that I would definitely want to be able to work with the communities of DeKalb to design what that looks like, what those resources are, that when funding does become available, what kinds of things we would like to be able to include in relation to education or development of the community to be able to support them. That if a family member wants to get their GED, if they want to learn how to speak English, if they want some support in being able to attain a job, that they want to be connected to a certification program or a job, that there is a form and a way, a process for them to be able to do that. Because as we improve our constituency, it will improve the community, it will improve the education process, and thereby making it a community that people want to come live in and not leave, but make sure that it thrives. So I think that's really what I'm looking at. The political standpoint of it, of course, is always making sure that we're working with the mayor, with the alderman, with the governor, and all of the other people that are the state representatives, to make sure that they hear us, they see us, and that they help us when they can. So those are the kinds of things I'm thinking about in relation to working with the community.
Thank you for that. So just kind of thinking a little bit about engagement. I know we've talked a lot about community engagement, but I'd love to learn a little bit more about how you support employee engagement, and some specific examples of how you've done that.
Sure. So there's a couple of things. Enacting it in the role that I currently am, there's many opportunities for staff for us to work together to collaborate. So for instance, I have monthly principal and assistant principal meetings, so that we are learning together to improve instructional practices across all our schools. During those times, the districts, in my case, network and district representatives provide professional development, training, or informational sessions to the school leaders, so that they are kept informed of everything that is happening and what they need to know, be able to understand and do at their level to ensure the consistency across the district. So that's one piece. I also like to pull teacher leaders so that they can support and be a part of a leadership development pipeline as they're growing in their practice. So this might be an opportunity for teachers that are on the instructional leadership team, or that drive departmental meetings, content meetings, or grade level meetings to be inclusive of what the practices are, and so that they can grow to be leaders of those opportunities. Excuse me, I have to cough. All right. And then, of course, then at the grade level or the classroom level, opportunities for teachers to be grade band teacher leaders or department chairs is really important. And what kind of professional development and support are they given is also equally important. Opportunities for them to have meetings either directly with the principal, assistant principal, or with district leadership to ensure that there's connection about what each school needs, what contents needs, and then what's happening. I think that the academic piece is really the easier piece because we tend to have those kinds of meetings anyway. I think what's really important is that we also use data to drive some of those discussions, whether it's quantitative or qualitative, and that everybody knows how to read that. I think that I talked a lot about the community. But I think that what's important for parents is that they know that they're sending their students to us and that we're caring for them in the very best way that we can. Communication with them has to be around that they're kept informed, that they're kept a calendar on a monthly basis, that they get their newsletters, that there's a way, maybe a robocall or website, or where we're using Remind or any other tool to make sure that we're keeping them abreast of information that they need to know and we're communicating with them. How we would collaborate with them would definitely be on making sure that they understand what our thoughts are on our strategic plan and getting their feedback, because these are their children, so they want to see some things happening, and we want to make sure that they're being included in our development of those plans. And then the students. Oh, how could I forget the students? So they're usually probably like student government, and there's all kinds of ways that children and students can participate in being able to tackle some issues that might be happening, whether they're school or district or citywide or countywide. And I think that's a great opportunity. I think where I'd like to leverage my experience is to really develop an advisory of students that can give me feedback about what the school experience is. And that advisory might be a little bit broken up depending on grade levels, but it would be inclusive of all of our students, all types of our students, all demographics of our students, so that I'm hearing voice for all of them and that they could speak with their advocacy voice and empathy to be able to reach people that make the decisions. And so I think that's really what I would like to be able to do for our students. And I think I've covered all my groups, but if I haven't, I'm sure you will let me know.
No, that's wonderful. You hit them all, and I love that, empowering the students to be advocates for their peers and themselves. That's a great perspective. Could you tell us a little bit, Ms. Minerva, about how you will work to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion among students, faculty, and staff in the district?
Yeah, so that's something else that really popped out of their diversity plan. And I think what's important is that we have to build relational trust. And we can't build relational trust until we understand who we are. And I think that needs to work its way from the top down. And in my practice, over the course of the last 3 years, I've been working with the school leaders and the teacher leaders in understanding themselves, removing their armor, showing their vulnerability, so that they can be empathetic and graceful to what the work really looks like and how teachers and students feel about the work, let alone parents, right? Because most of us, or a lot of people, are parents. So I think that's really what's important. I think that I would like to be able to drive that through community of practice so that we can better understand each other. And then I look for opportunities for the mirror, so that folks can look at themselves in the mirror and say, what do I need to be reflective of? What are the things that I need to adjust so that I can be a better me? And then what is it that I want other people to see and know about me that will help to really build out what we're looking to do, and me as a partner to the DeKalb School District. I think that once we do that, and people, and I've seen this happen with my school leaders, is that they begin to look out the window and they start to see who's out there, who who they work with, and are they seeing those things that they're beginning to value, or do we need to go get out the window and start modeling so that they can in turn be able to do the same thing with students? Getting to the student level does take us a little bit of time, but what it does is that it really embeds something in our growth mindset and in our hearts and minds to be able to really adjust our practices so that we are more culturally responsive and that we're being equitable to those that we serve. You know, I'm going to tell you that one of the things that really resonated with me when I started as a chief in Network 7 5.5 years ago was that there's people. So as I mentioned, about 95% of the population is Latino, looks like me, and 60% of the staff is actually looks like me, Latina, Latino. But what I found troubling was that they were the ones that really had the most bias and prejudice against the students, because they felt, I grew up in the same neighborhood, and if I could come out on top, then so can you. Pull yourself up from your bootstraps. And I think if what it did to students is that it put up a wall, and because students felt like teachers weren't hearing them, they weren't understanding. Life is different now than it was 20 years ago. There are different obstacles that they have to deal with. Family issues are very different. And so students just want to make sure that when teachers are looking at them, that they're looking at them, not at what they think that they're looking at. And I think that really what's resonated with me is that we've been able to overcome a lot of those prejudices and biases. And we're seeing that those same people are now helping us to really help others to remove those biases and prejudices that they have around students. Because, just because they are Latino, just because they are Black, doesn't mean that we have or can or should generalize about them. Students feel when adults do that. And really what they need is somebody to connect with them, to be able to appreciate where they're coming from, to know who they are, so that they get supported from that point moving forward. So I would say that kind of work is definitely the kind of work that I'd like to do. It's hard, it's uncomfortable. People don't like it. But sometimes it's actually what we need. And trust me when I say that it could definitely be something that will make a change. It's a game changer when it comes to working with our students and our families.
Thank you for sharing that. It's very insightful. Could you tell us, I think this is a hot topic in education right now across the board, and in normal times and in COVID times, but e-learning has become a new reality for us. So could you touch upon some of the beneficial changes that you've seen that you would cultivate that have come from e-learning, as well as how would you address some of the inequities that have arisen from the e-learning experience?
Well, first thing I'm going to say is that the resiliency in students and the ability to use technology is definitely where this goes. So, I think that even though they may not be coming off camera, turning on their cameras or coming on the mic, doesn't mean that they don't know how to use it. It just means that there's something there that needs to be looked into in a different way. Students know how to use it. And I think that's important. I think some of our adults may have trouble using it. And I think that can be solved easily with some professional development, some training, and some support. I think what's really important is that synchronous and asynchronous time be something that's scheduled and the students are acclimated to, so that they know when they're expected to be in front of the teacher, as well as expecting that, that they're doing things on their own. So I think that's important. None of it can happen if they don't have technology, if they don't have the iPad or the Chromebook, or if they don't have internet access. In my community, the internet access was really the big problem for me, and being able to make sure that everybody had it was really what I had to strive for. So, by this time around in any district, the opportunities for students to have access to internet, Wi-Fi, and having a piece of technology that allows them to access learning is a must. And so definitely wanting to make sure that whether the student has their own piece of equipment or whether the school district is providing the piece of equipment to the family, to that student, is a must. Because otherwise it's a detriment. We're not being we're not being equitable. We're not giving access to instruction. And definitely that's not fair. I'm sure that that is not the case here. But I would say that as the time goes on, if we continue to be on, we need to check in to make sure that those pieces of equipment are still working, that they're still viable, and that students continue to access it and can access it, not because we haven't been able to provide something, but because we've been, there's something else that needs to happen. I think the last piece again is going to be that SEL part, right? Students making sure that they're connecting to the adult that they are in the room with, making sure that they know that it's a trusting place and it's a safe place, and that engagement is required one way or the other. And students need to know that, and they understand the parameters if we set them in a way that's purposeful and is objective to them. So I think that's definitely something that I would say about e-learning and what's still needed. That's not to say that we can't still pass out some books and some worksheets and other things, right? But it's definitely a need. If we're doing it this way, then the resource has to be there for them.
Most certainly, I think COVID has started a lot of needed conversations around access, like you touched upon. It's a whole new world we're living in, that's for certain.
For sure.
On that topic of, COVID and all things COVID related, how much of a priority do you place on re-entering schools in person, and what does a safe re-entry plan look like for you?
Okay. So the number one thing that we want to keep in mind is safety, the health and safety of our students and our families and of the staff, right? So um, we'd have to talk about and look into the data, not just the positivity rate, but the doubling of it, so that if, 1 week we're 5%, the next week we're at 6%, that's one thing. But if 1 week we're 5%, the next week we're at 10%, then something's really happening. And we need to make sure that we check in with our health departments and that we're following good science and that we're making good decisions based on that. So definitely, if it's not safe, it's not happening. But what I also know is that a lot of our students, many of our students may be having a hard time just being on, on the computer. Our most vulnerable students specifically I'm talking about are our youngest students that might have trouble, or families that aren't there to be able to support them because they have to work or whatever, as many essential workers do. So I think that the consideration could be made, but also would depend much on science if our more vulnerable students attend physically, or if we go into a hybrid model as well, who would be the ones that we would recommend to come back into the building. And then, of course, if that happens, a hybrid model happens, then what does asynchronous and synchronous time look like? What do Google Classrooms look like? How does scheduling occur? What other adults are available to be able to help us to make sure that our students are connected and engaged? So there's a lot of things to think about, but definitely the first foremost on my mind would be the safety concern and the issue around the positivity and the doubling rate.
Thank you for that, Minerva. As far as, and I think we've touched on this a little bit, but I'd love to hear more about it. What would your plan be for visibility within the district? How often would you be visiting schools? What does that community engagement component look like? I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Sure. So definitely looking at being at a lot of the games. I'm that mom, the one that goes, oh, here she goes. That's me. I'm corny when I'm out there cheering. My sons can attest to that. But I think that what's important is that everybody gets to see that the life of DeKalb student education is really what's at the core for me, making sure that that I'm 100% in. Visiting schools, going out there, spending time with in the classrooms, checking in with the school leaders, making sure that there's a cadence of visits by all of us to make sure that we're on track for what the expectations are on a quarterly or on a semester basis, or even by the end of the year. Checking in with teachers, either at grade level or department meetings, ILT meetings. I think you would see me more than you probably ever want to, but definitely just checking in. And here's the thing: I appreciate when people come up to me and say, "Hey, I have a question." Right now, I probably may not always have an answer, But there's a notebook I carry around with me, and that notebook gets all my questions. And now I can't find my notebook, but that notebook always has all the questions, and I tend to respond to it as quickly as possible, making sure that I get your contact information. And if I don't do it, then somebody else will. I wouldn't mind having a family and community engagement manager or somebody that does that work to make sure that I always make sure that somebody is following up with everyone. So I love being in the schools. I appreciate what teachers do. It makes me happy. It gives me joy to see children learning. And that if I ask a question like, what are you learning and why is that important to you, that they give me a response. So definitely what brings me joy. So if I ever feel bad, if it's a blue moon kind of day, expect to see me in the schools trying to cheer myself up.
I love that idea of the community engagement manager. That's unique, but so needed in this day and in age, and with all the communication methods that we have. Could you tell us a little bit, Minerva, about your experience in controlling school district costs? So, what are your experiences in tax levies or tax reductions? Really, that school finance aspect of things.
Yeah. So my experience around that is not as deep level as probably a finance director would be. But I do have experience in ensuring that budgets do align, that priorities are made, and that we're monitoring the expenditures of what that looks like. If a tax levy or any other instance comes up that we need to be able to get at, I definitely would defer to the experts, in this case, the financial director of the district. And we would work together to make sure that not only is it being written appropriately, but it's aligned to the needs that we need, and that it's something that is needed, not just something that is wanted, and that it's always going to be in the benefit of the student. So I think that a combination of those things is important. Again, I'm going to say, that I may not be an expert in a lot of things, but the experts are there, and the working collaboratively to get to those to get to the best answer, get to the best work, is something that we have to do together.
Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Kind of talking a little bit about our personnel in our schools, again, circling back to that. Stability in personnel positively impacts our children and their education. So, what would be your plan for recruiting and retaining high quality teachers and administrators in our district?
Sure. So, that process is not just one person going through resumes, interviewing, and selecting. I'll just say that right off the bat. So I don't want to seem long-winded, but I'm going to go through this process so that you understand how I do things now. I could continue to do those things unless there's a better process out there, and I don't mind hearing out what that looks like. But generally speaking, if we are looking for, let's say, a second grade teacher, I'm going to use the example I used a little bit ago. So if I'm looking for a second grade teacher that's supposed to be bilingual, right? We're going to be placing out an ad, right? A post that we're looking for this individual. I would look to have gather a committee from that school that's looking for that specific teacher, probably from the first, second, and third grade teachers, that team, to be able to determine what kind of a teacher we need, right? So we know that if it's a bilingual teacher, they need to be bilingual certified. We know that it's a second grade teacher, it has to be an early childhood and certificate. If not, then what certificate could actually work for that grade level? We know, and then we'd have to say, based on the community, based on what our needs are, what are our other characteristics that we'd like to be able to see in this person? What do they need to know? The fact that they've responded to the posts and that they've sent the resume would probably tell us that they know their content, but not always, right? So we want to make sure that that those closest to that position that would work with this person have an opportunity to go through those resumes and maybe select their 6 to 10 top candidates of who they would like to interview. We would then have them also to collectively with me or somebody from the district, to develop or use a calibrated rubric to be able to score that interview. And then out of that interview, have have this group of teachers recommend anywhere between 4 and 6 individuals to be go on to the next level. The next level might be a lesson that they're doing in one of the classrooms, and individuals, maybe the principal, somebody from the district, and a teacher in that, or the ELPT, English language program teacher, or someone else can observe the lesson being done, and then again complete a rubric that has been calibrated to be able to rate that candidate. Once that's done, the selection of 2 or 3 people that could be considered by the principal for selection should give that principal an opportunity to interview that person, either alone or with someone else along with them, maybe the English program teacher or the assistant principal or someone else. And then I would say that that individual will then say, here are these 2 or 3 candidates I'm thinking about. This is the person I'm thinking about offering the position to, and then we could have a conversation about what makes sense. As we begin to have relational trust and build that out, at the beginning it might be just checking in, making sure that that I understand, but eventually the autonomy can be left to that principal and that team to make good decisions based on their school and what they know, because you guys know better than I do. I just need to know that they can do the work and that it's a good fit for that school and that community. So generally speaking, that's how I do the interview process and selecting a candidate. And it would go similarly for other positions as well, depending on what that position is.
I appreciate that autonomy piece as well. I think that's really important to note. When you are thinking about communication, and I know you've touched a little bit upon different communications, but what does an ideal communication plan look like for the district? What kinds of information should be shared with who, and in what format?
Well, sure. So again, as I was looking at the website, went into individual schools, and I noticed that some of the schools had newsletters posted, right? And I also noticed that some schools had PTOs or PTAs, and that some of that has been a little bit, there's some that are a little bit better at informing versus others. I think that each individual school definitely needs to be a little bit more clear about that. Things that, what you should know in case are things that should also be a part of it, like handbooks around, in case of emergency or those kind of things. So just general procedure kind of things also should be made available to the community as a whole. But I think that there also has to be a way to be able to communicate instantaneously with folks, whether that might be a robocall or the Remind app on everybody's phone, because usually everybody does have a cell phone. That we're communicating in the language of the home is extremely important, because if a communication goes out and it's in English and the family speaks Arabic, who's going to understand what that looks like? So definitely having a communication plan. Who is the enactor of that? Who drives the information? Making sure that we're checking in with schools, but also checking in as a district and making sure that everybody is aware is something that definitely would need to be put in place. Someone like a family and community engagement manager would be somebody that could actually do that work, not just that way, but in social media and making sure they check in with principals. It's not something that I would say I would want a principal to have to enact every time, but definitely just developing templates and a portfolio of different kinds of communication materials, opportunity to have things translated, and then making sure that communication gets sent to the appropriate people in a timely manner. Opportunities for people to give us feedback. How are we inclusive into some of that feedback for our next steps? And then, of course, I think that's definitely important and has to be a part of the communication plan. But also, what gets communicated during a board meeting from me or from other district leaders or principals. If we have a community meeting, how do we inform and how do we communicate the recording of that, right? So it's all of those things put together that really will make a robust communication plan. And that's definitely somebody that needs to do that work. It's not something that the principals could do individual kind of stuff in their own building, but we really want to make sure that that we're consistent and succinct in the way that we do our messaging.
Thank you for that. Well, those are the formal questions that I have for you, Minerva. What I'll do is I'm going to share a couple of things with the community, and then I'll pass it back to you and kind of let you bring us home with some closing thoughts. But community members, first, I want to say thank you to everybody who's watching and tuning in tonight and throughout the course of the week. It is so important to hear your feedback and hear your thoughts because the Board of Education are elected officials that represent you all, and we want to make sure that they can hear all of your thoughts and feedback. That being said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste, and it's on the district website, but the survey that is the impression survey that we've been filling out throughout the course of the week. I would love for you to please go on the website right now and fill that out about your thoughts on Minerva and what she could bring to the district. There's also going to be another survey that's going to be posted. Sarah will share that on the district website tonight. And that will be a narrative kind of survey. So now that you've seen all four of our candidates, the outstanding things they bring, we'd love to hear some more narrative comments on your thoughts and feedback on these different individuals. So please make sure that you fill out that impression survey for what Minerva shared tonight, and then look for that additional survey that allows you to kind of elaborate upon the things that you shared in the impression form, making sure that we have that quantitative data that you filled out through the impression form, and now we're getting that qualitative data to pair with it. And all of that will be shared with the board as they make their decision so that they can be well informed about the thoughts and feelings of their constituents. So with that, please just keep checking the website. If you go to the DeKalb website, all the way at the top, there is a tab or a link above, even before the website starts, that says Superintendent Search, and all the information about the timeline, the impression survey, and the comment survey can be found on there. With that, Minerva, I want to thank you for your time this evening, for sharing so many thoughts and sentiments with us. And with that, I will pass it back to you and kind of let you give us some final thoughts, and then we'll sign off and say goodnight to everybody on the call. So go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you again for being with me on a Friday night. When you're ready to take on your holiday beginnings, I hope that I've been able to be clear and concise with my information. I hope that I've made a connection with you. And I full-heartedly want to let you know that I'm 100% in. If you so choose to select me as your next superintendent, and I will make sure that we develop and we continue to create a district that you will be extremely proud of. Again, happy holidays, best wishes, stay healthy and be safe. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night. Please check the district website and fill out all of those surveys that are on there. And thank you to both Sarah and Shannon for being so incredibly helpful this week, getting all of the logistics planned and all the information shared. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night and stay safe and well.